God anti-sex?
All right, just got a little hotter in the room, hey? Is God anti-sex? Let me start by asking, what's your view of sex? Don't answer this out loud because I don't want to embarrass you, okay? But do you think it's good or do you think it's bad? And depending on what you say, actually it doesn't matter what you say, my next question to you would be why? Why do you think it's good or why do you think it's bad? You all have an opinion. What is it and why do you hold that? Again, don't answer out loud for now, okay? Is God anti-sex? You'd be tempted to think so from the way that many Christians act about sex and their views of sex. And even there, it's worth us pressing pause for a moment and kind of going, why is it that Christians often appear so anti-sex? And as I look at it, you've got a couple of reasons perhaps here. Many times it's judgmental. So we give off this kind of air of being better than others because of their sexual practices or history. And yet, stupid us, because we forget that if not all of us, actually even Christians, are sexual sinners in one way or another. And so you've got no leg to stand on if you're going to create some kind of us versus them mentality. Jesus wouldn't allow it. We all come to him and stay with him as those who have a sin problem, or else we don't come to him and stay with him at all. Number two, many times it's also misleading, as we give the impression that being a Christian involves simply this giant list of don'ts and no's, including regarding sex. Now, don't get me wrong here, okay? Followers of Jesus do have don'ts and no's. We understand that there is a judgment coming for those who continue in their sin without caring what God thinks, and importantly, without coming to Jesus for the forgiveness of their sins. And so for those who come to Jesus as sinners and who are welcomed into the family, there are things that we want to say no to. But sometimes the impression given by Christians is that we are only no people. We are no to sex, we are no to alcohol, we are no to smiling and having fun. And that's misleading. And it's not true. Because it's not the full story. Because Christians are far more yes to sex than they are no to sex. Christians are yes to sex because God is pro-sex. God created sex, and he created it to be good and to be for our good. But here's the thing. That goodness only flourishes in the right context. That goodness only flourishes in the right context. The safest place, listen carefully here, the safest place for us to give our bodies to another is if that other has publicly promised to give not just his or her body, but actually all of him and her. All of himself, all of herself. In other words, the context for sex to thrive is within a relationship that is created and held together by covenant vows. Sex is intended as a physical expression and enjoyment of two people who are counted as one in every single way. One fleshing, according to the Bible, belongs only in a one flesh union. Now, I've got to ask you then, is your view of sex that high and that beautiful? Or do you have a view that views sex as good, but you cheapen it by the way that you use it? When you understand sex as God intended it, then how could a woman invite a man to enter her when he hasn't publicly promised to give all of himself to her for the rest of her life in sacrificial and loving service? Sweet promises that are whispered during foreplay don't carry the same weight as a careful consideration to tie two lives together as one, with Him sacrificially loving and serving you. Again, when you understand sex as God created it, then how could men see woman as merely an object to pound in lust-fueled desire? Instead, you would see sex as a fruit of a sacred union of lives as well as bodies. And your wife that you have sex with as the person who you are to cherish with your own life, with all of your life. Can I say that the views of sex on this campus are outside, for the most part, of God's good designs and purposes? And it will devour us. It will eat us alive. Unfortunately, many of you already know that through your own experiences. And if that's you, especially if that's you, here is the good news in the midst of our brokenness and our sexual sin. You know, a while ago I preached on Luke chapter 7, and there in that story, in that incident with Jesus, you have this prostitute who comes to Jesus with a sexual history that marks her. Everyone's even able to see it. But what Jesus does is He scandalously welcomes her to be near Him despite her sexual history. She comes to Him as a prostitute. She leaves as a daughter, is what one author says. And that welcome is actually even for us if we come to Jesus. Come as a sexual sinner. Just come as a sinner, which every single one of us are. Come as a sinner and leave as a son or a daughter. Your old life is locked away. It's filed away. It's even destroyed by the God who keeps all records. And instead you are given a new life. It's a new life where you will seek to love God and to love the people around you. And there will be no's that will come up as you are following Jesus in this direction. But overall, the people on this side are known even more so for their yeses. For their yeses towards what is good, as God designed it, as God intended it to be, for our good and to the praise of His name.